Welcome back to Cask in Point. Today is going to be a fun day. We are drinking some Elijah Craig. Now, if you didn't know already, I love Elijah Craig. I own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bottles of Elijah Craig. Now, Elijah Craig was my first ever barrel proof, so it has a small spot in my heart that goes to just it. And I absolutely love them. I've gone and I've tried a lot of the batches, and soon in the next few weeks, we're actually going to try every single batch ever created once I can finally collect the last few that I'm missing. And today, we are trying none of the batch proofs, actually. We are trying a single barrel. Now, the single barrel Elijah Craig's, they started a few years ago, and they mostly started around the 9-year age range. Some are 10 years, some are 11. Rarely they are 12, but there are some 12s out there. But most of them kind of range in the 120s proof. Some get into the 130s, maybe 135. The highest that I own is actually 138 10-year, which is an amazing pick. But today, we're doing something different. We're trying a 140.7 proof pick that somebody sent me. Now, 140 is special. And the only HAZMAT that I own is this 140.82 rare character. And the thing about 140 proof is that it is technically flammable. And since it's above that kind of 70% ABV, the government says that you can't take it on a flight. Which, does that change the flavor at all? No, it doesn't. But it's cool. And I like cool things. Bourbon people like cool things. So today we're trying some HAZMAT Elijah Craig, and in the second glass here I have some C923. I figured I might as well compare it to one of the best batches that we've had in the last 4 or 5 years, but just on the look, I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but the color, it is much darker, much more orange than the C923, which is a bit surprising because this Elijah Craig is 9 years, and obviously with Elijah Craig, they tell you the exact year on the single barrels, and since they're single barrels, it's not blended, and these older small batches that had the 12-year age statement, obviously this could have 15, 16, 17-year whiskey in it, and it probably did have some of that, but single barrels obviously come from one barrel, so it couldn't have been any older, and if it was older than 9 years, they would have said 10 years on the bottle, but they said 9 years, so we know that this is only 9 years, maybe a couple months, whatever, but that kind of color on a 9-year is very surprising. And wow, okay, I'm getting citrus. I get citrus on a lot of the Elijah Craig single barrels. It's just kind of a very common flavor profile for them. Definitely getting some toasted oak, a little bit of marshmallow, a little bit of cherry here. Now, cherry, I absolutely love that on Elijah Craig. I think that's what takes any batch proof or single barrel from good to great, is getting that kind of, not necessarily a medicinal cherry, but just kind of any fruity cherry or red plum kind of note on it. Definitely getting a little bit of that here. It's obviously hot. It smells not like a ton of alcohol, but definitely getting a little ethanol heat on there. Definitely a little, twinge in the nose there. But overall, it smells very promising, actually. And compared to C923 here, I mean, they actually smell surprisingly similar. And wow, that smells really good. So let's try this 140.7 proof Elijah Craig single barrel. Oh, that's hot. Oh, that's good. Oh, wow. Cherries, marshmallows, sweet oak, toasted oak. Not getting as much citrus, which I'm happy about, actually, because I don't love citrus on Elijah Craig. That is really good. A lot of caramel. The finish gives me a lot of the red plums and the red cherries. They're still going. Obviously, a lot of HAZMATs tend to have kind of that gut punch, right in your stomach. Definitely feeling that, but it's really good. Definitely better than the 138 proof that I have. Wow, I mean, this is really impressive. Now, I'm not exactly sure how you can get one of these. I really do think the 138s, 139 proofs, if you can find one of those, or even 135 proof, if it's a good pick, it's not going to be that different than this. And, don't go on, I don't know if they sell these on secondary, but if they did, since it's HAZMAT, it's probably going to be like $300 or $400, since HAZMATs love to double the price, even if 138 proof is basically, the same thing. But it smells incredible. It tastes very good. I mean, you're obviously going to get a lot of heat on this. If you're not a big HAZMAT guy, if you don't love proof, maybe go with a batch proof in the 120s, but that's really, highly sought after. A123 is amazing. B517, if you could ever hunt it, was supposedly Whiskey of the Year in 2017. I haven't tried it yet, but heard that one was amazing for 124 proof. But this 140, yeah, I mean, it's giving me, these same notes. It hasn't changed too much in the glass. It's been sitting here for about 20, 30 minutes now, trying to aerate it as much as I can. Yeah, I mean, there's citrus there, there's oak there, there's hot oak there, there's caramel, there's cherry, there's red plum. There is definitely some rye spice in there. Not a ton of, like, rye dill or anything like that. I mean, really just getting a ton of sweetness, fruitiness, and a ton of, kind of caramelly, oaky goodness. I mean, that is, I could smell that for a while. That is really good. Yeah, all those flavors are coming through. I am getting a little bit of the citrus actually on the second sip, but it's mixing in with that fruitiness, the red fruit. So it's giving me both at the same time, and it's giving me a ton of oak. I would definitely say, just because of the proof, this is a very complex pour. I could tell that if it was proof down 10 or 15 proof points, I don't think the flavor profile would really jump out at me. But just at that proof, even if there aren't like 20 or 30 flavors, which this doesn't have 20 or 30 flavors, I think it has maybe 7 or 8 flavors, which is still good. But at that proof, you're just getting so much of every single flavor. I mean, this is just an incredible pour. I mean, I'm really, really surprised because I've had 138 proof, I've had 135 proof. Obviously, C923 is 133 proof, and we're going to compare this in a second. But for 140 proof, I mean, it's really holding its own. I would say it tastes around that 140 proof, though. So, again, avoid it if you don't love proof. I love proof. This is really good. I'm going to take a third sip here, and then we're going to go to the C923. Yeah. So much oak and fruit and spice and some citrus. The finish isn't actually super long. I mean, you're going to have kind of like a dry pepper, dry oak taste in your mouth. But kind of the good fruity flavors don't last super long. If I had to give it, any knock to it. But it's going to be somewhere in the 8s, which is unfortunate. I was hoping it was going to be worse because I don't want to have to try to find 140.7 proof Elijah Craig single barrel because they're not very easy to find. But very good here. But let's see how good C923 is compared to it, because C923 is an incredible pour. I also rate this one in the 8s. So let's see. Definitely have to cleanse the palate a little bit off of that 140. I'm gonna have to take a second sip of water here. All right, let's try some C923. Now, I love C923. C923 was the Magic House of 2023, a 13-year, 7-month whiskey. And I will, at some point when I'm drinking these kind of 2020 batches, 2019 batches, some of them that are really good. I mean, this is 136.6 proof A120. I am going to drink C923 alongside them when I do those flights for videos in the coming weeks, because I am curious to see how the C923 holds up against some of the best batches that we've had in the past. But definitely better than any 2022, any 2021, any 2023, any 2024 so far. Hopefully, maybe C924 is going to come out and shock us all. But that is a special batch. But let's see if it can beat out the C923. Now, on the nose, I'm getting a lot more kind of toasted marshmallow. I mean, there's still a lot of spice there. There is some cherry there. There is some red plum there. A little bit of like black currant on that one. But really surprising the amount of kind of toasted marshmallow, toasted oak, that kind of sweetness to it. Definitely a lot more than on this HAZMAT here. I mean, the HAZMAT, it smells hot. This doesn't actually smell super hot. The ethanol is not overpowering. If anybody's curious, there are, obviously the laser codes. This is A233. So if that makes a difference in your life, good for you. I've tasted them both. We will taste them both at some point on the channel. I don't really see a difference. I think if you just let an A222 air out for like 20 minutes, it's going to taste the same anyways, because that's all that really happened with A233. It sat in a vat empty. It sat in a vat that had a lot of oxygen for an extra 10 days. That 11 days technically. That's what it was. That's why it's, supposedly so much better out of the bottle. But if you let your A222 aerate more, it'll taste the exact same. Anyways. There's a lot more nuttiness on that. Almond, hazelnut, I say the toasted marshmallow, obviously some cherry in there, some caramel oak, some a little bit of hot oak. It doesn't taste as hot as the HAZMAT, I will say. The HAZMAT, it definitely tastes hotter, but it is actually really close. I was hoping the C923 would really take it home, and I am getting a little bit more aged oak on it, I will say. I mean, there's almost no aged oak on this one. I mean, it's definitely a little bit rough around the edges. I mean, and again, every single barrel I ever have has a ton of citrus, but the batch proofs don't tend to have a lot of that citrus, and I don't mind the citrus, but citrus and oak just isn't my favorite combination in the world. When in other barrels they have the cherry and the red plum and all that on top of the hot oak and the caramel, and I just kind of like that fruity flavor more. But this is giving me a lot of toast and marshmallow. I mean, really kind of surprised. I've tried C923 many times. I've finished an entire bottle of it, and I have not gotten this much toasted marshmallow on it before. So, really interesting how it kind of opened up here. Such a good pour. And such a good pour. That's my favorite whiskey of 2023. Totally understand the hype. Get one if you see it on the shelf. I've seen very few of these on the shelf. I bought every single one I have ever seen on the shelf, no matter the price. Thankfully, Elijah Craig barrel proofs aren't usually priced up higher than like $99.99, but it's just so good. I mean, it's mid eights, and I totally stand by that. I mean, it's one of those pours that I go back to when there are different flavors. There's toasted marshmallow. I will finish this off, and then I'll go back to the HAZMAT, but it's close. I will say it is close. It is closer than I wish it was, because I wish the C923 was just leaps and bounds better, but that HAZMAT is holding its own. And if you like really, really, high proof, gut punchy whiskey, that HAZMAT is going to give you a lot. But let's finish off the C923 here. Yeah, toasted oak. So much marshmallow. A lot of cherry. A lot of red plum. The finish is long with spice, with pepper, with cherry. I'm getting a lot of those good flavors that are staying in the mouth for 15, 20, 30 seconds. The pepper still hasn't gone away. I mean, that is just such a good whiskey. Got to finish every drop I have in the glass. That is just so good. And on the nose here, it's definitely not as good on the nose than the C923. It is giving me definitely hotter. It's giving me a lot of the citrusy, oaky things on single barrels. I mean, there is some fruit there. There is some toasted marshmallow, but there's not nearly as much as on that C923 on the nose. Now, I will cleanse my palate here. I should not be going back with these 133 and 140 proofers without some good water. But that is so interesting. It smells hot. It smells really hot. But let's finish off these last two sips here. Yeah. I mean, there's actually even a little bit more cherry on it. And that's just because of the proof. And there's a little bit rough around the edges, which is really what's holding it back from saying this is like a 9 or a 9.5. Is there is a little bit of like kind of roughness, which I think comes from kind of like a dry tannic oak that's in there that you obviously get a little bit on every Elijah Craig, but it is, basically it ramped up 130 proof good store pick to 140 proof. So you're getting all of those standard flavors of the citrus, the oak, the cherry, all these things, and that dry oak. But there isn't any kind of masterful blending going on that's, kind of avoiding that dry tannic oak. You kind of just have a single barrel with a lot of the standard flavors ramped up to 140 proof. It's really good. It's not the kind of pour that I go, back to a lot. Now, obviously, Elijah Craig barrel proof at 133 proof is not the kind of thing you're going to have every single day, anyways. My palate's already quite warm for today, and this is something I'd go back to even less. Like, it's kind of giving off like almost Coy Hill. Like, it's great. The Jack Daniel flavors on Coy Hill are great, but at 140 proof, I mean, it's just a little bit tough here. Now, I will give this one last sip, and then we'll rate it. And again, if this is your first cask in point review video, I rate every whiskey I've ever tried. I have a website. I'll put it in the bio. I should say, I put it in the description, and that will have kind of all the ratings I've done in the last, about 2 months or so. I've rated over 400 whiskeys in my time, and this is up there. Definitely beats out every Elijah Craig store pick I've had. And this one I'd rank at an 8 on the dot. So this is definitely going to be higher than an 8. But it's competing against a mid-8 C923. So definitely has some steep competition. But let's finish this off here and then we'll give it a rating. Yeah. That's an enjoyable pour. And the tough thing is, when rating something this high in proof, it's making you kind of like if I look at how much cherry am I getting, how much complexity am I getting, I'm obviously going to get a lot of complexity, even if there isn't that much complexity in the pour, just because you're getting so much of each flavor that it feels like there are more flavors going on when they're really only the same 5 or 6. It's just you're getting so much cherry, so much citrus, so much oak all at once. But it's a good pour. Look, I'm not going to disrespect it. I would rate this an 8.3. I think it's better than weekly sipper material. If I ever found one, I'd buy a case. If it was $79.99, I'd buy literally as many as they had, and I would keep this forever and drink this for many, many years. It's great. It's amazing. That being said, I do think the C923 has the slight edge. And I give it that just because I think it's a more refined pour. It's a little bit more complex. I do appreciate that. It gives me a lot of kind of the toasted marshmallow. It actually tastes a little bit more unique. This one doesn't actually taste super unique relative to most Elijah Craig single barrels that I've had. It's a very similar flavor profile. It's just ramped up the flavors a little bit more. Whereas C923, I think, it gives you that sweetness, and it's clearly a well-crafted pour that doesn't have that dry tannicness. If this didn't have that kind of strong dry tannic oak in it, this would quite easily be the winner. And if you like dry tannic oak, if you don't mind that as much in your pours, this is going to be your favorite thing in the world if you like Elijah Craig. But the C923 doesn't have it, but it's close. I would right now, I'd rate Elijah Craig C923 an 8.4. I've gone back and forth on the ratings with it. At one point I rated it an 8.6. At one point I rated it an 8.1. At one point I rated it an 8.3. I've gone back and forth on how I rate it just because for some reason every time I try it just tastes a little bit different because it's opening up, and I've had A222, I've had A233. I think it's somewhere in that low to mid 8s. I stand by 8.4 on this one. A very close competition, and the HAZMAT did well, but it's not going to win today. But really, glad I got to try it. This is definitely the best Elijah Craig single barrel I've ever had. It's essentially ruined all future ones for me. This 138 proof, this is just garbage now that I look at it. Unfortunately, no, I'm of course I'm gonna drink the heck out of this bottle. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. In the coming weeks and months, that we're going to do so many cool reviews like this. I have sample jar after sample jar, as you guys can tell, so many reviews coming up. But for today, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.